have all that.
I would like for you to define for our listening audience your definition of Christ and what it means so that they comprehend where you're coming from with that statement.
Okay, the word Christ comes from a Greek word, Christos, which means anointed one. Basically what it was the priest, the high priest of the church would come and say, okay, you've been anointed by God, they pour oil on your head, they wash your feet, you were then a Christ. It was just a title, like prophet or CEO or governor or just a title. Now, there are certain abilities and responsibilities associated with the title. For example, if you had the title of parent, you'd have certain responsibilities. But if you had the title of, say, CEO, you'd have completely different responsibilities. And I think that's what a lot of people forget. They believe that everybody else is going to be responsible for them, that they don't have the abilities and the powers that they actually do, and they fail to develop them. And it's like, and back to the schools, you talk about a lot of the lack of education within our society, and you have kids graduating who can't read. They're perfectly capable of reading, they just haven't been taught. It's like if you give a child a book and you say, know how to read this perfectly word for word, and if you can't do it right the first time, you're a failure and we're not even going to try again. That's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous belief system. But if you work on it a little by little, pretty soon they can accomplish incredible things. I mean, look at human civilization. Las Vegas, Nevada, for example, what did it start with? It started with somebody sticking a shovel into the dirt and saying, I'm going to build a house, and then I'm going to build this, and I'm going to build this, and pretty soon we have a huge city. Same with LA, same with New York, same with all these different civilizations. Somebody had an idea. That spirit gave the energy to the mind, and the mind had that spark. And it was a let there be light moment, and they said, I wonder if this would work. I wonder if that would work. And then, of course, we build off of each other's ideas. Every person is building off the ideas of the previous people before him. So in a sense, we're always standing on the shoulders of giants. We're just reaching further and further to the stars, and we're getting closer and closer. But the problem is a lot of people, and I know this is going to sound conspiratorial, but the elites, the globalist bankers, etc., those people who are, billionaires who own countries and, make war just because they want profits to go up. Those people are in competition mindset. They have to crush everybody below them in order to keep what they believe is power. It's not even about money. It's not even about money. It's about control. It's about dominance. It's about that primitive, primal gorilla monkey nature that says, I have to destroy you in order to get what I want. Whereas a more enlightened type, a Christ-like individual is going to say, I want to accomplish this, and I'm going to work with you, and I'm going to work with you, and I'm going to work with you, and we're all going to give and take input, and we're going to create something wonderful out of it.
Because we're not so insecure that we have to destroy each other to keep it.
Exactly.
Because that control issue is based on fear that somebody might get over you.
Yeah.
It's interesting that control or be controlled issue is so erroneous because they leave out self-control. It doesn't even come in there.
Yeah.
So do you realize you're teaching self-control, even intellectual self-control? How bizarre, how quaint, and how unusual, right?
Yeah. Well, that's part of it is most people don't know how to use their own minds. They don't really understand the potential and the capacity. And you can have all the potential in the world, but you should do something with it. If somebody is really good at raising horses and breeding horses, they should go do that. If they have an interest, they should go learn that. If they like to paint, or if they like to make music, or fix cars, or anything, they need to go to where they have the ability to learn and grow, because that's kind of what life is about. I mean, I personally believe in reincarnation. I think to a certain degree, we all take traits throughout the lifetimes. I'm a very stubborn person. I get that. I've gotten that. I've been that way in pretty much every lifetime that I've had. And I know I'm going to be the same way in the next lifetime and in the next after that. We have certain traits that we have that are spiritual in nature because the soul is an inhabitant of the body. The body is like the car that we're kind of driving around in. You know, we get to play around in it. And once the body is done, the soul gets to move on, choose a different life, a different body, a different personality. And I think a lot of this is rather esoteric, but in a certain sense, we, you know, if we remembered every single lifetime that we had, we wouldn't be able to function in one lifetime because we have all this baggage. And I kind of think that's one reason why we only have a certain amount of knowledge about various lifetimes, because, if at all, because we forget all the baggage. Because think about it, you wouldn't want the baggage of 3 or 4 lifetimes. That would be like hell on earth.
Well, it would be also confusing if you tried to activate all your talents at once.
Yeah.
You would start them all and finish none of them, I presume.
Mm.
Maybe that is a problem.
Well, you know, and there's certainly something to be said for certain people like Francis Bacon, or William Shakespeare, or Albert Einstein, or others who were multi-talented in various ways. And I think most people, though, get caught up in that because they go, oh, I want to be a writer, but now I want to be a filmmaker, but then I want to be a painter, but then I want to be a musician, but then I want to... So pretty soon they're jumping all over the place and they're not just focused on one thing and doing it really well, so they get scattered and they don't achieve as much as they could because, you know, it's a yin-yang thing. If you focus all your time on music, then you don't get to be the painter. Or if you do, it's not going to be the fantastic work of art that it could be because you're focused on something else. And I think there are a very few rare souls who, like Beethoven, he knew exactly what he was going to do when he was born. He immediately knew what he was going to do. He was playing the piano by age 3. And this was a kid who was born into horrible poverty. And his mother, he was, I think, the 12th child of his parents. And they were living, basically, it was, you know, if you've ever seen some of those old films about, you know, 1600s London or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, just ghettos, horrible living conditions. I mean, we think we have ghettos now in places like Atlanta or New York or LA. Those places are palaces compared to what they had overseas. I mean, human society, human life, a lot of times is a struggle, but it doesn't have to be. And I think that one of the ways we can make it less of a struggle is by each and every individual knowing what they're capable of and working towards that. Because if you deny a child, I mean, if you've ever seen a child whose mind and spirit has been broken, it's the most heart-wrenching thing you can possibly imagine. The most heart-wrenching thing you can ever imagine. It's terrifying. Because you think, wow, all that potential, and somebody destroyed that. Somebody destroyed that. It's horrifying. Because how is that child going to get that get that back so they can become the successful, creative individual? Or are they just going to live the rest of their life miserably? And I think that within our society, we're so focused on stuff, on physical stuff. I mean, I see people who, you know, I look into their eyes and I see that they're miserable, and they may have a mansion, or they may have a BMW, they may have a whole bunch of stuff, and they're just as miserable as somebody sitting in the gutter who has nothing. And it's because the nature and quality of their soul. They have been so beaten down, they're so empty inside because they haven't cultivated anything. Because you do have to cultivate it. You have to cultivate your mind, and you have to cultivate your spiritual expression. Because if you don't, it's not necessarily that it goes away or it dies, it just goes into hibernation. You know, it's not easily accessed. I hope I'm being clear. I know I'm kind of
you are very clear.
touching a lot of subjects.
You are very clear. I keep glancing at the camera to make sure that we get you some good shots. And so I do want some good shots for you. Would you move in just a little closer to that camera so that we can get some really good shots of you? And maybe this time, as you continue to speak, look at me in the camera so our listening audience can feel like that they are more included.
Okay. So how long is this interview going to be? About a half hour?
Yeah, what we can do is take this little break that we're doing right now, this moment,
Just
and
edit.
we can
Okay.
we can edit this particular
I hope
section.
I'm
I hope
not rambling
Yeah.
too much.
So no, actually, I hate to admit this, but what I can do for a second is turn it off. Well, I hate to